For this video, I'm going to be going through the Karma and Ezreal deck that I've been playing a lot recently. I really enjoy the list. I think that it is relatively well positioned in the current meta because it's a very slow meta. I have not been running into very much aggro at all, and when you are running into a lot of other Ezreal lists, I think that this one is kind of the best of the bunch at dealing with opposing Ezreal lists or opposing slow lists. And the reason for that is because with Karma and Ezreal together in particular, you can essentially kill somebody all in one go. You can 20-0 them, and that's a pretty big deal when it's a slow meta. So we're going to go through the list, and then I'm going to include an example game piloting the list so you get a feel for the deck like usual. Right out of the gate, we have 3 beams. This is just to help you control the board, get you those targets so that you can level up Ezreal. I currently run 2 healing potions. I like this card a lot because it can be used as a combat trick in a pinch, but it's a burst spell, so once your Ezreal is online, it's just another tool in your belt for dealing that quick burst damage to your opponent. It's also a great way to top off your health, so once you have a leveled up Karma on the board, this becomes 1 mana, heal your Nexus for 6. That's a pretty big deal. Jury-Rig, this helps you with being a burst spell, for example, but it also helps you to block things early on if you need to in a pinch. Rummage, this card is actually fantastic. So with Karma on the board, once she's enlightened and she starts doubling things, this becomes you discard 2 and draw 4. You don't have to discard for the second or for the copy, but you still get to draw 2. It's also a great way to get these jury rigs out for free. It's another burst spell, which again helps you with the Ezreal. But specifically, the interaction with Karma means that you can get away with running 3 rummages and then just not run Progress Day like you do in other Ezreal lists, and it works out just fine. Chempunk Pickpocket is just phenomenal in this list. On the off chance you do hit the Nexus, you're almost always going to give yourself a relevant spell. Otherwise, it's a 3-2 for 2, helps you block fearsome units early on, helps you trade with other units, including the now nerfed Chump Wump. So this is just a great inclusion. Mystic Shot, standard fare. You can help to burn down a Nexus with this, right? It can target anything, but the real thing here is early removal, level up your Ezreal, etc. Obviously, Ezreal is your win condition, and if you're not familiar, if you're a brand new player, you have no idea what I'm talking about. The entire point of this list is to level up Ezreal to level 2, and then it's whenever you cast a spell, you deal 2 damage to the enemy Nexus. Now, the other champion that we run is Karma, who, when you have hit level 10, right, you're automatically going to level her up, because that's what Enlightened means. It means you're at 10 mana crystals, essentially. This says when you play a spell, cast it again on the same targets. So what that means is when you play Rummage, you get 2 Rummages. When you play Health Potion, you get 2 Health Potions. When you play Mystic Shot, you get 2 Mystic Shots. So the idea is once they're both leveled up and you have them on the board, you can do things like you can play Rummage. You're going to discard 2 cards, draw 4 cards, and then deal 4 damage to the enemy Nexus. 2 for each Rummage. If you play Mystic Shot with both of them on the board, you're essentially going to deal 8 damage to the opposing Nexus because Mystic Shot deals 2, Ezreal's trigger deals 2, but Karma copies the Mystic Shot, which deals 2 more, and the copy triggers Ezreal, which does 2 more. So you can kind of see where things just multiply and they grow exponentially, and that's the point of the list. 1, get excited. Again, helpful early removal. You can also pitch Jury Rig to this as well. I go back and forth. If I'm against more aggressive lists, I'll include 2 of these and 1 deny. As I said before, it's been a much slower meta the last week or so, and as such, I've been running 2 deny, 1 get excited. Shadow Assassin, this helps you get chip damage in. It's an early blocker. It can help against elusive units. It draws a card, which is also kind of a big deal. Chump Wump, not as strong as it used to be. Now it's just a 4-3, but it still does what you want it to do. It gets a body on the board, gives you 2 burst spells to help with those Ezreal triggers. Deny for opposing control matchups. Static Shock. This card is kind of mandatory in this list. You don't have as many target options in this version, in my opinion, as you do some of the other Ezreal decks. So making sure that you try to hit 2 targets with Static Shock is a pretty big deal. It's the fastest way to level Ezreal up. This is great against aggressive lists, but sometimes it can you know, just sometimes it can result in you just pinging something for 1 and having to deal 1 to the opposing Nexus. It isn't really like an all-star card, but it's also mandatory, if that makes sense. You don't feel often like you get a ton of Static Shock value, but what it does for your endgame goal is incredibly valuable. I guess that's the right way to word that. Will of Ionia. This is rather nice because you can use it to bounce big units, and in many ways it kind of like time walks a turn. They didn't do anything and you didn't do anything, but you got a target out of it and you get 1 step closer to 10 mana, which is the important piece. But the other reason that this card is really cheeky is in Ezreal mirrors, and as I said this last week, I've seen a lot of them. If they start targeting your units, or they start trying to stack like multiple targets on the same unit of yours, you can just bounce your own unit back to your hand, saves your unit, but also denies them getting the targets for them leveling up their own Ezreal, and that can actually make or break in the mirror. So usually a defensive option, but in Ezreal mirrors it can actually be quite the disruption tool. Karma, other half of your champion set for the combo. And then lastly, Yone Wind Chaser. This does count towards your Ezreal targets, so just like Static Shock, you want to try to be stunning 2 units when this comes down. The 6/6 body makes it very relevant. It's oftentimes just a big blocker. You typically don't get to successfully attack with this. You're just kind of chewing up smaller units, but hey, you stun 2 targets, you help level up your Ezreal, and you probably chew through 1 or 2 units along the way, so it gets the job done. It's very, very effective. That's the list. As always, going to be the deck code in the video description. We're going to go play a game on the list now so you can kind of see the list in action. When you see Zed and Freljord, it's pretty good indication. Pretty solid indication you're up against elusives. So things you want to prioritize in this matchup are your removal. You want your Mystic Shots, static, things of that nature. This is a really brutal opening just because it might very well push things outside of Mystic Shot range. Not that we have one, but if we did have one, it would be even more heartbreaking. It's kind of heartbreaking enough that we don't have one. Actually, just going to take the pass here. We don't want to attack into this, and we can clean both of those up with a Static Shock. Then maybe keep something alive with...
Time for a leap of faith.
And Elixir, well that is... gonna change things up for us a wee bit here.
Closing in on the mark.
We're gonna block this for sure because we want to be able to hit it with a Static Shot. It's just a question of whether or not you want to block here or try to get the spell. I think that just not taking the damage makes far more sense. Our goal is to survive.
Save me, Luke.
Master.
Now they could very well have an Elixir here. There's nothing we can do about that. But this at least gets us 2 targets up and running. If we get a free turn or kind of like a nice opening, you can develop Karma early in this matchup specifically, just because other than Will of Ionia, they don't really have anything to deal with her. You can just play her and sit on her, so not only is she free value, but then it just means you're that much closer to going off once you hit your 10 mana.
The order rewards its faithful.
But that being said, this is not the turn for that. We'd rather play the blocker and then Mystic Shot something else. I haven't seen a lot of things that they have buffed
You cannot escape.
with this. So at some point they're going to be playing some big beefy units and it's not going to go well for us. This turn might be where we develop the Karma actually.
Where there is life, there is hope.
Okay. So like I said, other than Will, there's not a lot they can do. They played the Will. It's like a tempo play for them.
The Yordle here's with me.
They didn't have an elixir the last round for combat, so unless they top decked it, they shouldn't have it here. Oh, okay, well, that's fair. That's fair. Almost ran him out of cards though, so.
Hang on, Buzzball.
Hey!
I really wish we had one more mana because our choice is essentially to will this or static shock the other two. Well,
What you
let's
looking for?
start with this. So we're gonna play this either
Extra
way.
hands never hurt.
Yeah, ouch. That's a big ouchies. So, will or static shock both technically stop like 7 right now. But this is a lot of damage that we're about to take. I think you take the static shock because with one card in hand and they've already used one elixir, the likelihood of it being a second one is pretty small. And the will always have value, but I think you want to try to get value out of this when you can.
Hang on, Zern.
Ionia speaks through me.
Didn't really draw a lot that helped us as far as the old, like,
You name it, I'll nick it.
staying alive bit. Rummage on these chump wumps is a real possibility this next turn. That doesn't help us a whole lot here either.
Full speed ahead.
Well, let's start with this. Just to see if they have the deny. And we still could have rummaged first, I suppose. We might have also drawn something to go there, like a mystic shot. Save even more damage. Yeah, a rummage just pitching these two would have been entirely reasonable. Because we still would have had enough for a mystic shot should we have drawn it and the deny. Interesting that it's taking this long, because if you have the deny, like, you have to use it here. It's your shot at lethal, and I can't imagine you're going to have a better spot, better time to use a deny against this particular list. Yeah, I think we're going to do this. Mostly because I kind of wanted to see if we could find an Ezreal. This beam is kind of tempting as well. Means no spell mana carryover. But it means that Ezreal is for sure leveled up if we draw him. So I would prefer to, I think, just do this now, because next turn we're going to start with a Rummage and likely... Oh, they have a Deny and they didn't use it before. Wow, okay. I am shocked by that.
What they cannot see.
So I was about to say, we're for sure going to be using a Rummage here, because we get to dig really deep.
As one.
The health potion is a huge pickup. There's the Ezreal that we were looking for. So the health potion probably keeps us alive.
I thought you'd never ask.
But we'll go ahead and do this. So that means that this will hopefully then level up our Ezreal.
Firing! I'm so good, I surprised myself!
Without a sound.
I mean, we have potentially will for that next turn. But let's just go ahead and do this, because this will flood our hand with potential options here.
It's not bragging if you can back it up.
I mean, they basically have to block this, and they have no cards in hand, so we don't have to worry about combat tricks. So it gets rid of a unit there. And we might even get a concede once I drop this health potion here, but...
The body must thrive for the mind to be free.
We'll just take this into the next round. Oh, they don't even go with the open attack, huh?
Need a map?
And now you're kind of seeing what the deck is supposed to do, right? Once you have both on the board, at that point, everything else you do, you just burst speed, rifle through everything. You're dealing a lot of damage with Ezreal. Everything copies. And that's it. So you just have to survive and then kind of pop off. The tricky parts for navigation are against lists that can kill your Karma or your Ezreal, and against Ionia, Freljord, that elusive list, you don't really have to worry about it. Like I said, will is the only thing that can interrupt your flow. Against other Ezreal lists, it is a bit draw dependent. You are traditionally in a better position just because, one, you get some healing with the healing potion, especially if you have Karma on the board. But also, again, your ability to kind of just win from hand. Like if you set it up with enough mushroom clouds against an opposing Ezreal list, you can essentially win the moment you hit 10. You can play Karma. If they don't have that answer for the Karma, you play Ezreal. And then if they do anything that's not burst speed to target Ezreal or Karma at that point, you can pop off 5 1-cost burst spells, and then you just win because of the copying that Karma does. So that's kind of why I think this list is a little bit better when there are so many other Ezreal lists floating around, but that's it. This is a list I've been piloting when I want to climb, and then I go back to playing memes, but in any time that I want to go forward, this has a really good win rate. I think it's well positioned right now. It struggles a bit against hyper aggro, but I'm just not seeing a lot of it on the ladder at the moment. So, keep an eye out for that. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching the guide. Hopefully this helps you, gives you some ideas. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in future videos.